everybody, we are glad to be back with you for a new edition of Inside Africa. Malnutrition remains a big problem in African countries despite the presence of an increasing number of health extension workers. They are tasked with providing families with essential nutrition and knowledge. However, their weak performance has offered little help to tackle malnutrition that is high, especially among children.
The formation of health centers in African countries has led to an increase in health extension workers. These are people who are trained in basic health knowledge, particularly in nutrition, which they are expected to pass over to mothers. However, despite their presence, malnutrition remains high. Reports by the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, shows that 23 million people in 11 countries in the Sahel and Horn of Africa regions are affected by food insecurity and are facing malnutrition. Children remain the most affected. Nutritionists say most mothers now are aware of the importance of good nutrition, but they don't know how to improve it, and that's what health extension workers are supposed to do.
There are detailed message about, giving diverse food, timely initiation of complementary food, exclusive breastfeeding, and how to feed the child, being patient. So there are steps if the health workers take the time.
A recent research conducted by group Save the Children Ethiopia shows that health extension workers do not follow up mothers to check on their progress in access and preparation of healthy complementary food for their children.
Health extension workers should give time for mothers, whatever the child becomes moderately malnourished or severely malnourished, they should give enough time, at least 20 minutes, to discuss about the mother's real activity problems, so in such a way they can discuss with mothers and can solve accordingly.
The performance of the health extension workers is not the only reason behind the continued malnutrition. In some cases, the women they counsel do not have access to food. Most malnourished families live in food insecure areas. In addition, a family may have up to 7 members, while food given by donor organizations may only be enough for 2 people. This even leaves breastfeeding mothers with a poorer nutrition. According to the Save the Children Ethiopia group, some breastfeeding mothers are forced to take coffee the whole day since they do not have enough food and have to give the food to the children. Subsequently, the level of proteins in their breast milk drops, and this passes on to a breastfeeding child. As malnutrition continues, UNICEF estimates that chronic child malnutrition would cost African countries $25 billion a year.
Nigerian ambassador to Togo, Matthew Sunday Adoli, has told Nigerian youths nursing the idea of going to hustle abroad to drop such plans and take alternative profitable ventures at home. Speaking in an interview with some Nigerian journalists in Lomé, Ambassador Adoli emphasized that such overseas trips are fraught with dangers as they could end up in jail or lose their lives.
Togo is home to about 2 million Nigerians. They are found in all sectors of the economy, making success in their different endeavors. But few constitute nuisance to themselves and to the host country. Almost on a monthly basis, over 20 Nigerian youth trafficked into Togo on their way to Europe are sent back to Nigeria. Ambassador Adole is Nigerian envoy to Togo.
What do you look for in Nigeria you cannot get? Is it arable land? Is it items to trade with? Is it job? That you come here to squeeze the space of this thing and that is not available here. And all in the name of saying they are outside the country, where you can do better in your country, instead of coming here to sweep and say you are abroad. It's a disgrace to those who are doing that to themselves, because conditions in Nigeria now are such that you can obtain assistance in one form or the other from any organ of government.
The ambassador implored parents sending their children to school abroad to tutor them well and provide enough for their sustenance.
The last report I got was very disturbing. The police phoned me and the Human Rights Commission phoned me that they had Nigerian female students had taken over nightclubs in town, and that they were coming back late, and it was capable of harming them, because if they are killed, or if anything happened. So I went and addressed them to please lessen their promiscuity and give good examples of themselves, because they are also ambassadors of Nigeria here.
Let's move over to Ghana, where the University of Mines and Technology, TAQUA, will from the 2013-2014 academic year start a degree program in environmental safety engineering. This is expected to expose students and profile solutions to the environmental challenges that arise from mining activities, both legal and illegal. This was disclosed at the 5th congregation of the university at TAQUA in the Western region.
The University of Mines and Technology, TAQUA, is one of its kind in the West African sub-region and has been in existence for 61 years now. It started as the TAQUA Technical Institute in 1952 by the colonial administration and later affiliated to the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Following a parliamentary act in 2004, it became a fully fledged university. It was during its first congregation in 2009 that the late President John Evans Atta Mills pledged and later redeemed 100 million Ghana cedi allocation sourced from the Minerals Development Fund for the infrastructural and academic development of this special school.
The fund is being used for the construction and refurbishment of infrastructural and other academic and residential facilities in the university, as evidenced by the number of construction activities on campus. These activities continue to promote quality of the teaching and learning environment. The government, through the fund, has provided the university with petroleum engineering laboratory equipment worth £1.3 million sterling. These are the oil well cementing laboratory, reservoir fluids and rock properties laboratory, and the generic oil and gas processing simulator.
Given the limitation of the land at the university, Vice President Kwesi Mr. Arthur was delighted that the paramount chief of the Wasa-Fiase traditional area has donated large tracts of land for the future development of the school. He also tasked the university to do more to curb the devastating effects of mining.
There's therefore much work for this university to do. Reaching out to the local community legal mining, teaching the Galamsey operators sustainable mining methods to improve their efficiency and reduce the destructive path they are currently on, and reversing the environmental damage that has already been done. The mercury that is freely used to process the gold is poisonous to humans and gets into the food chain when it accumulates in fish. When ingested, it causes mercury poisoning and results in disorders of the nervous system and many birth defects.
382 students graduated. Of this number, 2 were awarded doctorates, 17 Master of Science and Master of Philosophy, with the remaining going into the world of work with Bachelor of Science degrees. Deserving students were also given special awards.
We are still in Ghana, and now the Vice President Kwesi Mr. Arthur has inspected work on the 7 kilometers River Kakum dredging at Kwapro in the Cape Coast Metropolis. The work is a joint collaboration between the National Disaster Management Organization and the Cape Coast Metropolitan Assembly. The Vice President initiated the dredging works last year to end the perennial flooding that sometimes destroys life and property.
River Kakum is said to have sourced from Praso before streaming into the sea at Cape Coast near the University of Cape Coast. Annually, the river bursts its banks with the onset of rains. Last year, the devastation was grievous among 5 communities within the catchment area of the university, with Kwapro being the hardest hit. When Vice President Kwesi Mr. Arthur visited the affected people, he pledged to put an end to the flooding. He then tasked the National Disaster Management Organization to provide an excavator while the Cape Coast Metropolitan Assembly fills it. The Kwapro citizenry are also expected to provide voluntary labor in the dredging of the river. Professor Peter Champon chaired the committee tasked to facilitate the work.
Embankment ya bruni friends levee yewia yense nnua eso nnua se ne be ya nsuo no ntimi embrichi de ataso mienu brimso at the dam na ho no say the first dam wo mo ye no Ghana ha na ni solutions nti yanto so kakra na afa yemu ye empoma na nsuo no eyiri na eba na ebie empoma no na abesene ko.
It came to light, however, that some unscrupulous people were into sand winning in the riverbed while dredging work proceeds, retarding progress in the process. Vice President Kwesi Mr. Arthur said his preoccupation is to improve the quality of life for all Ghanaians, including people of Kwapro.
CSM more in CCNA, Obiba, Ointimentedo, or them was sent and also obey any view. In such a bed patch out there, one share on our friend Galam same, no words and when we form ho. Ma assassin Austrian, na no one yet, Boshan we bottom, na in soon nephew the Orba, Cruma, into young share near your new ye, na one say in Yama, yes, on the book.
The Vice President's entourage was taken round the banks of the river to see progress of work so far. Mr. Arthur expressed satisfaction at work done and hoped the embankment is finished quickly to contain the flood when it rains.
Moving on, officials from the New African Partnership for Development and NEPAD have rounded up a working visit to Cameroon. The visit aimed at propelling advanced training programs for nurses and midwives in the country rounded off on July 25th at the Ministry of External Relations in the nation's capital, Yaoundé. Sixtus Mbom tells us more.
The officials of the New Partnership for African Development, NEPAD, rounded up their working visit in Cameroon at the Ministry of External Relations in Yaoundé this July 25. This African Union strategic framework for Pan-African socio-economic development is currently ensuring good quality health services for pregnant women in Cameroon, Gabon and Congo-Brazzaville.
My second visit to Cameroon on the NEPAD project for nursing and midwifery education in Africa. Our focus is more on providing highly skilled nurses and midwives from university level so that they can be able to provide the necessary primary health care in the urban areas as well as in the rural communities. We want to train students at a master's degree level. And we are looking at the University of Yaoundé 1 to partner up with the University of Stellenbosch in South Africa. This is a 2-year program at a master's degree level.
It was revealed at this working session with Dion Gute, Minister Delegate in charge of the Commonwealth at the External Relations Ministry, that traditional midwives still operate in rural areas of Cameroon. Though the Ministry of Public Health is currently training 500 nurses in some 10 schools in the country, the ministry authorities still say there is a great shortage of human resources in the health sector. The government of Cameroon has pledged to support NEPAD through the Ministry of Public Health and that of Higher Education to facilitate a training partnership between the University of Yaoundé 1 and the Stellenbosch University in South Africa for the training of nurses at the master's degree level.
We will be designing a curriculum based on the needs of the country. And we will then share it with the Yaoundé. In fact, the two universities will work together on this particular curriculum and reach consensus, and then we'll introduce it. And it's, there's a process that we're going to follow, you know, with reference to get the first group of students to get their master's degrees.
Over in Uganda, the Ministry of Relief and Disaster Preparedness says over 60 districts countrywide have been severely affected by famine in the past few months. According to authorities, more than 530,000 people have been affected, and they warn that the current food shortage is likely to persist until the month of October.
Several districts in Uganda have been hit by a dry spell over the last couple of months. As a result, areas in Karamoja sub-region, Acholi, Lango, Teso, West Nile and some parts of Buganda and Bunyoro have been affected by severe food shortage.
An estimated population of about 530,000 people is at risk of starvation. Some starvation-related deaths have been reported from the sub-counties of Kamion, Lodiko, Kidepo, Kabong and Lolelia.
Information from the Ministry of Disaster indicates that 60 districts have been affected countrywide, and it projects that the current food shortage will persist until the end of October 2013.
Through August, September and October before it eases out in November 2013, when the next harvest is expected.
According to Minister Hilary Onek, government is already working with humanitarian agencies and other line ministries to provide relief to affected communities.
The Office of the Prime Minister led a rapid assessment of the situation in the affected regions, particularly in Karamoja, with the involvement of World Food Programme, the International Organization for Migration, United Nations Population Agency, World Health Organization, and the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO.
In some parts of the Karamoja region, communities have been forced to cross the border into Kenya in search for food.
Bringing you more news from Uganda, a private company commissioned to design a compensation and resettlement package for residents in the oil-rich Hoima district is in the spotlight. The company that was approved by the government is accused of forcing residents of Buseruka sub-county in Hoima district to give away their land.
A few years ago, the government earmarked Buseruka sub-county in Hoima district as a suitable area for an oil refinery. Land totaling to 29 square kilometers was needed to provide space for the refinery's development and its attendant infrastructure such as an airport, waste management facility and petrochemical industries, to mention a few. Residents from 14 villages are likely to be relocated if this project goes through. Many of them are already crying foul as the demarcation of the proposed land continues. The residents say they are being threatened with evictions and have not been compensated to enable them relocate to other areas.
I remember when they came, my friend even got a what? He was beaten, and it shows a bad image to me that there is some hidden agenda which they don't want us to know.
The systems should be transparent. People should be respected. All of us here seated, we should not say those are the people in Kabari. No, we need to wake up and work together to make sure that our government respects our rights.
They are accusing a private company for irregularly executing the project. The company was allegedly commissioned by the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development to survey land and oversee payments. The residents say they are being threatened to sign documents to give away their land without any form of payment.
Then you sign, the money has been paid to you, but the money is not being paid. Now the question is, community, people are worried. You are saying that the money has been paid to me or received. Now suppose you go and deposit less or you don't.
They want government to regularize payments according to the current real estate rate. Officials from government, however, maintain that the process of compensation has been transparent and dismissed the reports.
That can't be true. Maybe the complainant
just people pretenders, Only 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, the Ministry of Energy published in detail, first of all, how evaluation is conducted, who conducts the evaluation, and in case somebody is contesting the evaluation, how to make appeal. There are appeal tribunals at sub-county where there are local officials and representatives of government. So, really, that should not arise.
Plans to construct an oil refinery in Hoima district are already underway, and the planned project will start with a smaller capacity refinery of about 20,000 barrels per day to be constructed in 3 to 5 years and later upgrade to 60,000 barrels of oil per day.
Let's now make a stop in Kenya, where human-wildlife conflict cases in the Amboseli National Park are quite common, as man and the beast compete for scarce resources such as water and land. But such cases are set to reduce after the community leased out part of their land as an elephant migratory corridor. This 16,000-acre piece of land leased out by the Ogulului Olola Rashi Group Ranch will extend the elephant paradise from the Amboseli National Park to the Tanzania border, commonly referred to as the Kitenden Corridor, that connects to the Mount Kilimanjaro National Park.
The largest land mammal, but this seemingly gentle giant at times has a vicious side.
Dala ya kwenda akatufesi kumaanisha ndovu walikuwa tayari kuchaji, inaweza ruka na ikukanyange na hakuna mtu atakuokoa.
Tunalazimishwa kuvuna kwa sababu ya usumbufu wa wanyama.
Wanajua pahali iko pipe, wanachimbua, wanakata, wanatengeneza kabwawa, wanakunywa maji na kuoga.
Zile pembe zake anaiguza, yani anaisukuma ile kikingi, ile post, anaisukuma, anaangusha chini.
They are able to study the way the fence has been done.
In the dead of the night, a call comes through that an elephant had invaded the compound of one of the hotels near the Amboseli National Park. Flashlights on the ready, KWS wardens spring into action in search of the beast. It later emerged that the hotel is constructed on the wildlife corridor that connects the Amboseli with the Tsavo West National Park. Such drills may be routine in several parts of a country and only highlight the fragile nature of the relationship between humans and elephants here, a relationship that is increasingly strained as humans continue to impinge on the animal's natural habitat. Here in the Amboseli ecosystem, communities have experienced firsthand the downside to these strained relations. This back-to-back occurrences between the two natural enemies has escalated.
Greatest threat to wildlife conservation today lies mainly on the human population pressure on the scarce land resources, and this leads to human-wildlife conflicts.
Most of the animals are in the group ranches and the community land. And I want to call upon all of us as players, as stakeholders, to make sure that the community get a reason to conserve this animal.
But today, this community has a different story to tell. It has leased out 16,000 acres of land to the Amboseli National Park through the International Fund for Animal Welfare, part of which forms the Ogulului Ololarashi Group Ranches, meaning that over 1,400 elephants within the Amboseli ecosystem will have more space to roam freely. The space extends from the Amboseli National Park to the Tanzania border, known as the Kitenden Corridor, that connects to the Mount Kilimanjaro National Park.
We want you to be the owners of the conservation in this region. Tunaelewa namna hiyo? Tunataka nyinyi pia muwe watajiri ya kupokea watalii, muwe na game reserve yenu ambayo ni watu wa hapa.
These elephants routinely move into the ranch areas, mostly during the rainy seasons, and at times come into conflict with farmers and villagers. The Kitenden Corridor will ensure that this favored route is secured. This is just one of the Vision 2030 flagship projects that involves reclaiming wildlife migratory routes that have been interfered with by human activity.
If there were no elephants left,
this would all turn to bush. It would turn to thick bush, would not be good for ranching, would not be good for tourism. Nobody could see the lions or the other animals.
As the country pushes forward with development, more wildlife habitats are under threat, and these regular brushes between humans and wildlife will continue unless proper policies, including land policies, are in place to minimize these encroachment by humans into the wildlife space.
We stay in Kenya, and this time around farmers in Elgeyo Marakwet County are being trained on a new mode of farming God's way, farming method that rids the farmer of the conventional method of farming like plowing the land before planting and the use of fertilizer.
Monday afternoon, and farmers in Cheptebo village, Elgeyo Marakwet County, gather there is something heavenly here, or is it? The new technology being taught affects the core of their economic activity, farming. Its name, Farming God's Way.
Farming God's Way in Africa was introduced in Zimbabwe in 1984 by a missionary called Old Drive.
The term farming God's way means that as a farmer, one uses the natural resources available.
Can you say Mosca?
Yeah. Thomas Chepkonga was in South Africa to get the techniques on the method of farming. So today, he shares it, trying to convince these attentive farmers.
Actually, it has three principles. No plow or no tillage. Secondly, is do not incorporate coarse blanket. That means that is the cover crop, or no pan. Thirdly is practice rotation. When you used to be in school,
by not plowing the land, moisture is maintained in the ground. Timing is everything, we are told. To avoid weeds competing with the maize, the weeds have to be cut out during the dry season. That will in turn act as the mulch. But to convince doubters, Thomas set up 2 demonstration plots in April.
Farming is not a story tell, but it's a realistic because you witness by seeing.
And after the experiment, their demo plot produced good quality maize, requiring no labor, while the conventional method demo plot required weeding twice in the past 3 months. And as the cost of farming inputs remains high, some here are looking forward to trying out this new method come next planting season.
I'm going to turn my all energies to farming God's way.
The harvest is triple with a new mode of farming as compared to the conventional way of farming. And so, for these farmers in Cheptebo village,
Lord, we thank you and we pray that you may bless.
They can only give thanks to God for a bumper harvest ahead.
And that report brings us to the end of the program. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful time in the company of our programs.